Welcome to Opening Kick. I'm your host, Smoke Dixon. As you can look around and see, our guy Petty's not here. He's one of the victims of Hurricane Milton, but he'll survive and he'll be all right. And he'll be back next week. But just in his spot, I got my man, Tyler Turner, former defensive lineman at Liberty. Birdie told me you're also a model because you look good, chin, all good, hair, everything, perfect smile. But also, if you want to find him, he's on the sideline. He did some pregame stuff for Liberty, too. But tonight, we're going to jump in, what's happened last weekend. We're going to forecast what's going to happen this weekend. And I heard that you know everything about the Big Ten. And you can quack like a duck because you know everything about the Ducks.
I'll go there. I'll say that. I know a little bit.
So let's jump right into it. Big win by Oregon and Dan Lanning. Other than pushing a quarterback for Ohio State and said he didn't, they came away with a big win. Now, what do you think the impact is on this W in terms of Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge victory for Oregon. It puts them really in the driver's seat to be in the Big Ten championship. Think about Ohio State still has to play Penn State. They still have to go to Penn State. Oregon every game, especially in the SEC and the Big Ten. We're seeing what's happening in the SEC, right? And at the Big Ten, I would say there's not as much the parity that goes on in the SEC. There's definitely the top tier, and some of the other teams are just not quite as good. But I like where Oregon is. They're 6-0. They won their biggest game of the year. It was obviously one of the best games of the season. If you saw it, it was just a back and forth, incredible, literally down to the final play where Will Howard decided to run the clock out instead of getting down. But that happens. That's on the road. When people were predicting this game, so just to mark quickly on that, and then I'll go to the Big Ten. When people were predicting this game, I saw most people predicting Ohio State. And it's not surprising. Ohio State is one of the most talented rosters. They have NFL guys in the offense and defense. You got guys like Emeka Egbuka, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Keyshawn Junkins, Trayvon Henderson. I see why you pick them. But going into Autzen Stadium is one of the toughest stadiums in college football to play. They're 32-1 since 2009. What happens. But when you're on the road, the crowd is loud. All of a sudden, you forget what the time is. All of a sudden, you do a stupid penalty. And it really was what impacted it. I think it was Autzen Stadium played a big role in it. And like I said, big victory for Oregon, really puts them in the driver's seat to at least make the Big Ten championship. We'll see Ohio State and Penn State play here in 2 weeks. And there's other good games. Oregon has to head to Michigan. They have to head to Wisconsin. Those are not easy. It's on the road. So far, when teams in the Big Ten have had to travel more than 2 time zones, they're 2-10. So that's a real thing. That's a real
thing. But
yeah.
Here's a question I would ask you though. If you had to take away 2 things, one from the offense and one from Oregon's defense, and if you have to touch anything on special teams, what would you take away in terms of what they did on offense to show you that yes, this is the true Big Ten leading championship caliber team?
I would say that the explosive plays in the passing game. You saw Evan Stewart have 7 catches for 149 yards. Tez Johnson's one of the best receivers in the Big Ten. Once again, had some big plays. He had a 48-yard touchdown. Terrence Ferguson, 5-6 catches. He had a big 30-yard catch on a 4th down conversion. It was the big plays in the passing game. I think they had 6 plays of 30 or more yards.
Yep, 6 explosives.
Yeah, so when you can do that, and they ran the ball well. They had about 125 yards on the ground. The offensive line, they didn't give up any sacks. They really stymied what was supposed to be this elite Ohio State defense.
Right.
I could touch on that a little bit.
We'll get to that, but go ahead on the defensive side. What did you see
on the defensive side? Ohio State's tough. Ohio State got their yards. I would say probably the defensive line. They got pressure. They did not allow them to run all over them. I think Keyshawn Junkins and Trayvon Henderson together had less yards than Jordan James did.
Right.
Mateo Ugaleti had a sack. You had other guys that got pressure. Derek Harmon forced a fumble that was able to lead to a touchdown. I would really say the defensive line, because the big thing about the defensive line was Jordan Birch is the best player on the Oregon Ducks defensive line. He didn't play in the game.
He didn't play?
He got injured in practice. So I was really impressed with the defensive line. And honestly, the defensive field while they gave up plays to Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith, and these talented
Right.
wide receivers. They didn't give up the big explosive plays. It was a lot of 10, 15, 20 yards. And anytime you make a team drive, that's better. So I would say the defensive line on defense, and it was an explosive passing game on offense. Do you want me to touch on special teams?
Oh, yeah, do that.
Special teams almost lost Oregon the game. They missed a field goal. They missed an extra point. They missed a 2-point conversion. They did have one really good special teams play, and they did an onside kick where they literally kicked the ball into the defender and recovered it. But other than that, the special teams was actually the one down spot for Oregon in the game.
Correct. But when I went back and I watched the game, all 22 on PFF Ultimate, I thought that Ohio State would come into that game and they would control the trenches, and I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon ran the ball at an efficient rate and controlled the game. And to me, whenever you can win the trenches, and then you add in explosive plays on offense, and then you have efficient quarterback play from Dillon Gabriel and made plays when needed, he outplayed Will Howard.
Mm-hmm.
So now when you go back to Ohio State's side of the ball and you look at their offense, they've always had these big explosive plays. And like you said, Tyler, they did not have those explosive plays. They were having to go down the field in 10, 12 play drives in order just to score.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, Oregon did exactly what they wanted to do on defense, was dictate the explosive plays and how they ran the ball. I thought that if Ohio State would have stuck to the run a little bit more and not got so impatient in terms of trying to score a bunch of points all the time and just win the game. And that's where I think Coach Day could have done a better job of settling down the troops, because now he doesn't have play calling anymore. That's where Chip Kelly comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And if Chip is calling plays, I always say, coaches, you control that last 2 of the second quarter going into halftime, that first 2 into the third quarter if you get the ball back or if you're on defense, and those last 2 minutes. So really 6 minutes of the game, Ryan Day, that's when you had to come out and coach. And you didn't do a good job of that. Now, everyone's going to get on Will Howard not giving Ohio State a chance to kick a field goal. Well, I would just tell him this, man. Get 5 and slide. And don't let the game get ahead of you. And I think they'll have a chance at it. But listen, since we just touched on our guy, Ryan Day, that seat's getting hot. Do you really think that he's on the hot seat just because of his record? 2-6 versus top 5 opponents. You think his job's really in jeopardy, Tyler?
I mean, when you look at his overall record, he's won 2 Big Ten titles. He's lived into the playoffs 3 times. He's played for a national title. It sounds crazy to say a guy with that much success is on the hot seat, but he's 0-2 against Oregon. He's 1-3 against Michigan. He lost
2-6 against top 2-6 against top 5 opponents in his career.
And it's Ohio State. I mean, you have the best roster in college football, arguably. If you're not the best, you're top 3. You have plenty. Yes, you have plenty of that.
And Tyler, not to cut you off, but they have the best talent that I've seen in a long time in terms of their top 30 players. Like, it's not close to anybody else in college football. I've said it. Urban Meyer said it. Jim Tressel said it. So I understand the hot seat, but I'm going to let you finish. I just want to give you a little bit of nugget.
Yeah.
My opinion of what they have in terms of talent.
I am going to maybe Oregon Oregon has a lot of talent too. So because I looked at Ohio State in that game, their defensive line made very little plays. Tumalau, Jack Sawyer, Tyreek Williams really were non-factors, especially.
That's a weak link. That's a weak link of their team, and I think.
But then look at Denzel Burke. He's supposed to be a first-round pick. Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson burned him 4 to 5 times in the game. So are they as talented on defense? But I'm going to give credit to Oregon. Oregon has that. I mean, Dillon Gabriel is one of the better quarterbacks in college football. Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson, they're going to play in the NFL. Terrence Ferguson's arguably the best tight end in the Big Ten. So
Right.
there is good offense beats good defense.
Right. It's good on good football. At some point, receivers going to catch balls on good DBs if you give them time. Like you just said, they had a lot of time. I'm not blown away with Ohio State's defensive line, and I think the depth of that and the size of their defensive line is going to catch up to them. That's why they typically get bullied by the bullies on the block in Michigan. But keep going.
No, because I just want to, on defense, I was just not as impressed as I thought I would be with their defense. And when it comes to Ryan Day, you got to win these big games. And you think about that game, he had a chance to win it, right? He had a couple of things that stuck out that I'm like, that's not very good coaching. So they get the offensive pass interference. Ryan Day, like you said, he's no longer the offensive coordinator. He's just the head coach. He should have either called a timeout or he should have said, guys, we got to get ready. They let like 12, 13 seconds go off the clock. Then Dan Lanning calls a timeout. Dan Lanning sends 12 guys out there for Oregon. Did you know that? That was on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
And they let 5 seconds run off. So then you have 5 seconds left in the game. And then Day should have been, and this is on Howard, but Day should have been like, you get down. You get down. You do
5 and slide.
5 and slide. And do I think a college kicker is going to hit a 50-yard field goal on the road? Probably not. Right. But you at least give yourself a 40% chance instead of like the game ends up just being ended there. And you could say those little situations. Ryan Day got outcoached by Dan Lanning, and I thought Oregon made some mistakes too that allowed Ohio State to actually be in that position.
Right.
But he has to win. It's tough to say a hot seat. Like, I think it's ridiculous to say someone who's done as well as he has, but he does obviously have arguably one of the best rosters in college football, and to be so bad in games against top 5 teams like you have aptly put, something has to change because you'll start hearing noise.
In big games, your quarterback has to play their best. Your best player has to play their best. If it's a quarterback or offensive lineman or a receiver or skill player in terms of tight end or receiver or even running back, one of those guys, they have to show up. And your quarterback, they got about 3 to 5 plays that they have to make. But your head coach needs to coach his butt off in that game. Because if you don't, you see the time get ran off. You see another guy stealing 5 seconds off the clock. And right now, if I'm a coach or offensive coordinator and I have coach to a player communication, that means I can speak to you in your ears until the 15-second cutoff. I should be able to tell you every single thing that you need to know about this play and how to execute it at a very high rate. And not knowing that an offensive penalty ensues now the clock to start running once the ball gets set, you're crippling your team as a coach. That's your job. Don't argue about what happened. The call's already been had, and it's already been called. You can't reverse it. Understand now, you either call a timeout or you get on the ball, you snap it, and you give your team 2 plays. You say, hey, listen, we got 2 plays to run. We got to get 5 here, and the next play we got to get about 10. And if you get in the middle of the field, these things that you talk about as a coach, you get down quickly. You catch, get down, call the timeout. We bang the kick through. We go home celebrating on the flight back. But yet, you beat up the sisters as the poor, and when the big boys come out and play, you're 2-6. Don't think his job is in jeopardy right now, but if he loses in the Big Ten championship and he does not come home with a ring, I think they might have the right guy in-house already and give Chip Kelly that job. But that's just me speaking. Listen, they said there's another big one coming up, but now we're going down south in the SEC. Georgia versus Texas. Give me your thoughts on that. Who comes out as a win? First of all, let's talk about matchup. Let's talk about Texas's offense versus Georgia's defense. I'll let you go ahead and take either one that you want, and I'll battle you with the other and tell you how this thing's going to happen.
I mean, Texas has looked very good. Let's be honest. So far in this season, they have looked very good. Blew Michigan out at Michigan. Blew Oklahoma out, the Red River rivalry. The only thing is these teams – sorry, Michigan. Sorry. Apologize to you in advance, but you're not that good this year. You don't have a quarterback. You're just not very good. They lost to Washington, who was not very good. So Texas hasn't played a team of Georgia's level. That being said, to touch specifically on Georgia, I have not been as impressed with Georgia as you would think. With the roster talent they have, they obviously barely beat Kentucky. Probably, honestly, shouldn't have won the game. Got way behind Alabama, were able to come back, but dug themselves in a huge hole, and did not have the most impressive outing this last weekend against the Mississippi State team that is not very good. Coming into this game, going to Texas, with Texas playing as well as they are and Georgia not, you want to say Texas is going to win this game. But you still got big-time players on Georgia. You haven't seen Texas play a great team yet. What if all of a sudden Texas is in a situation they haven't been this year, whereas Georgia played a close game with Alabama, had a tough game with Kentucky, and it does matter when you play in these tough games, you are more used to the tough games. When you're used to blowing people out, then all of a sudden you're in a situation you haven't been. So it will be interesting. A part of me wants to say, I just think Texas is better right now. But another part of me is saying, who have they played? Who have they been tested by? And Georgia has elite players on defense. You got Carson Beck, who's still considered one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. It's an interesting matchup to me. I really want to see a better version of Georgia. I want to see Georgia come out and play to their ability level on both offense and defense and make this a good game. But I am a little concerned. I am a little concerned because coming into this game, I think the more impressive looking team is Texas, and they've been impressive on offense. They've been impressive on defense. They have obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and Quinn Ewers got a bunch of explosive players on the outside. They've been great. Their defense has honestly just been really, really good. So, I mean, who am I going to take right now? It's going to be Texas, but it really will be interesting if Georgia can really make some plays early and make that a kind of a tough game that Texas is not used to. I'd actually like Georgia in the advantage if it got to that point.
Well, sorry, Tyler. I think Texas is the most complete team in college football right now. If you start on the offensive side, I think they have an NFL quarterback. The issues that we had about them at running back early on in the season, I think we can put that to bed. Mm-hmm. They've done an excellent job. My man Brandon Harris has done a tremendous job as general manager down there of getting the right talent there, just recruiting good athletes, skilled athletes, that if they played linebacker and they can play running back, you can take them over. And Coach Steve Sarkisian has done an awesome job of just integrating those guys in their offense. And when you look at the offensive line, bullies on the block. Mm-hmm. Their offensive line is what you remember of what Georgia, Alabama, even LSU, and what Michigan looked like last year, of just big, athletic people movers that can dominate the trenches. And then when you look on the outside, explosive with Bond, Bolden, of guys that can explode and get down the field and create explosive plays. So when you combat that with one of the better play callers, and he's just not calling plays like those other guys outside that want to be cute and want to run the chuck and duck offense, he truly wants to run the ball downhill at you, create play action plays, take shots, but also use his personnel to create mismatches vertically and horizontally because he has the speed to do that. And when you look up, you have a heavy-handed, two-headed running back system that's coming at you downhill. So I think this game offensively poses a lot of issues for Georgia because on the back end, I don't think Georgia is what Georgia used to be. And I don't believe they can put the pressure on Quinn Ewers as they did against other teams. This Georgia team, they have too much going on. From the beginning of the season, I said they're off the field actions. At some point, we'll catch up to them. And you see it slowly catching up to them because this is not the same dominant, focused team that you're seeing right now. Let's touch on their defensive side if you want to. Because if you don't, I can go in on what I think about Texas's defense.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think that, again, up front, they impose their will on their opponents at a high level. And the days of you looking at Texas and thinking that you can come in there and push them around, those days are done. The second-level linebackers are guys that are playing downhill, and they got erasers. You know, when guys jump out of the gap, you see show up really quick, and they got fast guys at the linebackers in the second-level position that can make plays outside of just staying in the A, B, and C gap. They can get on the edge and make those plays too. And on the back end, man, I wouldn't say shut down, but they can close a lot of space, and their guys aren't just ball skill guys because they have that. They have sticky coverage guys that can get in your hip pocket, sit down when you sit down, get up when you get up, and run with you when the ball's in the air. They're like receivers, man. But I truly like this Texas team. It's going to be a battle because Kirby's not going to come in there and just get busted up. He's going to come in there and give you his best shot. And hopefully Coach Sarkisian and his squad can make this a memorable game and not something that we got to wait the last 5 minutes of like we had to do for the Bama game.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely sounds like you're leaning Georgia.
I'm just leaning towards a good game.
Yeah.
If I see a good game, I'm fine.
I get you. I mean, so far this season, it's not even comparable. Like Georgia, I mean, has just not been dominant. Carson Beck has not looked like you'd expect. They have not run the ball like you normally see. They played good against Clemson, and obviously Clemson's turned around and they show that they're still a pretty good team. And Georgia looked really good in that game. Obviously, dominated them on both sides of the ball. But then when you've looked at Georgia against Kentucky, barely pulled out a victory on the road. Against Alabama, got into a 28 big hole. They were able to come back. Beck was able to make some plays. But even those plays, I talked to Justin a little bit offline, were a lot of like underthrows that the receivers came back. I still did not think it was like an amazing performance by Beck. I haven't seen Beck elevate his play like you would think. A guy that was projected by most to be the top pick is either Shedeur Sanders or Quinn Ewers. But I think Ewers, who's been injured a lot, but Ewers has played extremely well when he's been healthy, and Beck hasn't. And if Beck doesn't elevate his play, they will not win this game. Plain and simple, Texas is too good. Quinn Ewers is going to get his. Like Bond, like you said, he's one of the best receivers, an explosive guy on the outside. I think Alabama still would like to have him. And you actually mentioned the Joe Moore Award will probably go to Texas. I think Kelvin Banks will be the first tackle drafted in the next draft. They're really good in the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball. But when a team has their back against Georgia loses this game, they've lost 2 games. That puts them in a really tough position to make the SEC championship. They obviously then would not have they would lose the tiebreaker to both Bama and to Texas. And you have to think we have our backs against the wall. We are Georgia. We won 2 of the last 3 national titles. We lost 2 games in 3 years.
To the same team.
Yeah. Are we going to go out like this, guys? We have to win this game. I just think that little things like that and the psychology it does to players, and Kirby Smart's a great coach. He's undeniable. He's one of the best coaches in college football. That will he be able to get that little extra there, be able to force a few turnovers, because Ewers will turn it over.
Yeah, he'll give it to you.
And Beck elevates his play. Beck plays like the first-round draft pick that people projected. Because right now, I know about 10 quarterbacks right off the top of my head that have played significantly better, including.
Wow. Okay. You know what?
I'm going
to jump in that.
Would you argue with me?
That would be a very good debate. I don't think I have 10. I have a few. I don't think I have 10. But here's what I can say just studying Carson Beck this season. There's something about him that troubles me, and that's his ability to anticipate throws. And also process information. His eyes got really, really wide against Bama, and he looked confused for a guy that's played in big-time games. And I've never seen this issue before. Now, it's easier when you have Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. Those guys create space and create separation for you. And when plays are designed and you know exactly where to go with the ball, and you're running the ball at a high rate and you're doing play action, everything kind of opens up for you. But right now, if I'm an NFL talent evaluator, I would say the same thing that you just said. He's not elevating his play. He's a win with quarterback, not a win because of. And if you're a win because of player, I don't know if you are the first overall pick and that's everybody else is that. And for me, if I had to pick 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks, I'd say 2 that's playing better than him right now, I would say Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders is playing the best quarterback in the country right now.
Okay. Do you want me to bring? Do you want me to bring
Yeah,
up another guy?
give me your top 5, and let me know where
Your,
they stack up.
your guy, Jalen Milroe. I would say Dillon Gabriel. I would say, like you said, Shadur
Yeah.
Sanders, Quinn Ewers. Off the top of the kid for Indiana, can't think of his name. Rourke, is that right?
Rourke. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
Rourke.
even like guys like Miller Moss for USC. I know USC's been losing.
I love Miller.
Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, look at the game
Yeah.
he had the other day. I did say 10, so I have to think it's. I just named quite a few that I think have played. If you compared apples to apples,
right,
I would, and I have to keep on thinking to be able to think of some more guys.
And maybe I should have asked the question like this: what if you are Miami Dolphins and have the first overall pick, right? You have Dolphins, Giants. Let me see who else in the quarterback. Giants, Dolphins. Let's throw the Jets in there. And there are 3 quarterbacks, NFL quarterbacks. You got to put in their ability to play in the NFL, just not in college. What quarterbacks are you taking in front of in front of Carson Beck, if you are one of those 3 teams? You're evaluating for an NFL team.
So I never wanted to admit it for some reason. Maybe it's just because I don't want the Colorado situation gets on my nerves. But Shadur Sanders elevates. I mean, without Shadur Sanders, that's a terrible team. I mean, the guy makes plays off platform left and right. He has one of the worst offensive lines. They're maybe a tid better this year, but they're still awful. Mm-hmm. He's a big time player. I would say Cam Ward, ability wise, Cam does make a ton of mistakes, and that's at the college level. I mean, he put them in a huge hole against Virginia Tech. He put them in a hole against Cal. He does have the ability then to turn around and win you those games. He is a little bit, his highs are high, but his lows are pretty low. Quinn Ewers, obviously, this is the 5-star, #1 rated guy coming out of college. He has all the ability in the world. I still think there's been too many times in big games where he's gotten outplayed by the other quarterback. Think against Michael Penix in the playoff game. Penix played way better than him. Think Dillon Gabriel in last year's Red River. I can't say it. Red River Rivalry. He got outplayed. And then he has a chance this week. Will he outplay Carson Beck when it's 2 high-level quarterbacks? If he can, I think Ewers definitely has immense amount of physical ability. And then you got Beck. Who's another name? I feel like I'm missing someone else up there. I mean, is there a better athlete at the quarterback position than Jalen Milroe? Now, maybe as a passer, there is some consistency issues. And he's had games. He obviously had an amazing game against Georgia. He had a little tougher game against Vanderbilt. And then this weekend, he had moments where they were great. But then there was also moments where he struggled. But there's not a better runner. He's an elite arm strength. He's an elite size. He's just a terrific athlete. I just named quite a few that, as of right now, I'd probably take over Carson Beck. Just my opinion.
Right.
So if I was going to, I'd take Shadur Sanders probably first and Quinn Ewers second, to answer your question specifically, and then probably battle it out between Beck, Milroe, and Ward there at third. How about you?
Well, since you're on this high of this Jalen Milroe, your cigars is going to be passed out to somebody. It's the 3rd week in October, and us fans down here, I'm a Bama guy myself. You can see the helmet behind me.
Okay.
3rd week in October, Alabama versus Tennessee. Does the loser of this game get eliminated from the college football playoffs, and do they get sent home without an opportunity to now play in the SEC championship?
Wow. No, the loser is not out. The SEC is an elite conference with just a lot of really good teams. If you finish 10-2 in the SEC, you are, in my opinion, in the college football playoff. Now, that being said, these teams got some other tough games ahead of them.
Right.
And, I mean, you got LSU in 2 weeks. Is that correct? And then you still got Missouri, who I don't think is as good as people thought they were, but they're still a solid team.
Right.
And Tennessee has Georgia.
Yep.
And then you're looking at 2-10 and two loss teams playing. There is going to be someone in the SEC that you'll probably look at their roster and be like, that team should be in the playoffs, but they lost those 3 games and they finish on the outside.
Right.
But you could also see a 3-loss team. If I don't think any other conference puts 3-loss team in the playoff. I can see a scenario where a 3-loss team in the SEC makes the playoffs. And it really does depend on what the Big Ten does. If you have an 11-1 Ohio State, 12-0 Oregon, and 11-1 Penn State, you probably put those 3 in, and they're definitely worthy of it. But then if you have a couple losses by Penn State, which I think Penn State almost lost, they should have lost to USC. I don't know how they pulled that out.
You got to win some dirt. You got to win some ugly games and make them look pretty at the end. No one knows what that looks like. All it does is that pretty W.
Yeah, hey, they were getting their butts kicked, turned the ball over, and somehow found a way to win it in overtime. But if you have, there's a scenario where I could see you have only 2 Big Ten teams. You have like 2 ACC teams. You have 1 Big 12. You got the group of 5, and then you got about 6 teams from the SEC. And
so right now, okay, you say neither one of those teams get eliminated.
No,
Bama and Tennessee. So right now, if you had to give me your 12 teams in the playoffs, including the 15 teams that you say are coming from the SEC, go ahead and give it to me.
Okay, right now, who I predict as of today, or who I see in the future.
Overall, just who you at the end of the season, give me your 12 teams, disregarding what happens, because you're saying this game doesn't eliminate anybody. So these 2 teams are in. So you got Alabama, Tennessee. Keep going.
I do probably. The thing is I say this losing this game doesn't, but I think Tennessee loses this game, and I think Tennessee loses to Georgia. I just think Tennessee is not good enough on offense. Nico is a good freshman, but he's a freshman. I don't think they're not very explosive on the outside. Squirrel White seems injured. I think Tennessee's a 9-3, maybe even an 8-4 team. Remember, they play Vanderbilt. So I don't have Tennessee in playoff. I have Alabama. I think Alabama ends up. I would have to run through their schedule, but I
got it for you. I'll give it to you. So right now you got this weekend. You got Tennessee.
Win.
Then you got LSU.
Lose.
Oklahoma.
Win.
Missouri.
Win.
Mercer.
Win.
And the boys down south of Cal College, Auburn.
Win. And they're in the playoff. So I have Alabama in the playoff. I have Georgia in the playoff. I have LSU in the playoff. I have Texas in the playoff. Then for the Big Ten, I'm putting in Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. In the ACC, I got Miami and Clemson. In the Big 12, like, my goodness, who knows? Let's go with BYU. And then how about those Boise State Broncos? Ashton Genty. Maybe a 4th seed out there.
You want to go with you think they in?
Boise
11-1.
State. They lost in a last-second field goal to Oregon at Oregon. So I got Boise State in as a 4th seed. I had them over BYU. So I would go 1st seed. I'm going to go with Texas. 2nd seed, I got Ohio State. 3rd seed, I'm going to go with Clemson. 4th seed, I'm going to go with Boise State. Then I got Oregon at 5. I'm going to land off. I'm doing this off the top of my head. So
I got you. I'm counting for you.
6, I believe I'm going to have LSU. And they play in the SEC championship. I have 7, Miami. I have 8, Alabama. I have 8, Penn State. 9, Alabama. 10, Georgia. 11, what did I have in there?
Wow.
11, I said it. I have BYU. And then number 12, who is my 12th team? Shoot. Now I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I'm
So are you leaving Clemson out?
No, I had Clemson 3. I had
And
Clemson.
so you have two teams from
Yep.
the ACC.
Yep.
So what happens if Army or Navy runs the table?
They would get in over Boise State.
They'll be undefeated.
Navy plays Notre Dame. Is it this weekend or next weekend?
You don't. There's a chance.
There's a chance.
There's a chance.
There's a chance. I mean, if Notre Dame runs the table, which is very likely.
Right.
I think Notre Dame gets in. I think I actually would have Notre Dame getting in. I think they do run the table because I don't think their schedule's that hard, and they still have a very good roster. I have Notre Dame getting in.
So I do believe that the winner of this week, third week in October, matchup Tennessee versus Alabama. I believe they'll be in the driver's seat for the SEC championship game, and also Bama will put themselves in a really good position of being in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now,
I agree with that.
the difficulty of what both teams have or going to face is the inconsistencies of their team in terms of penalties, lack of explosive plays on both recently on offense, especially in the run game. And I think both teams are better when they can truly run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen more out of Tennessee because they were one of the better teams since the last couple of games. And that's now helping out Nico's ability now to take the pressure off his shoulders. And you're not asking him to make a ton of reads and plays because I don't think he has that in him yet. I do believe he's one of the better young quarterbacks. But teams have slowed him down just because they can't convert those big play opportunities so they can go and start playing fast pace. Because when you're playing fast pace, you can't set those exotic looks for Nico. And he is struggling to process the defenses that's been thrown at him right now because they're not running the ball and they can't now say they're the one that's dictating the way that the game is being played. The game is being dictated to them. Mm-hmm. And it's been slowed down from guys faking injuries. I'll say it. Nobody has to say it with me. But also not being able to close out on those explosive plays. Now, instead of the easy throws for him, those throws are looking more difficult. Those windows are getting a little tighter and smaller, and he's missing. And he's trying to now overcompensate for his misses as trying to be a perfect thrower. And he can just go ahead and just flick the ball and let it go. Now, for Bama, and I love them, they're struggling on offense, and people aren't going to want to admit to this. In order to be a good offense, you have to be able to run the ball with your running back. And then if your quarterback's a part of that running process, that's cool too. But I don't know how much you want to always depend on your quarterback to do both because he's one play away in a run game from not being able to finish your season or finish the game. Now, when the quarterback's in the pocket, and Milroe's done a better job of playing in the pocket, you're protected. Guys can't go low. They can't hit you too hard. But once you run the ball, you're now a runner, and you can get crushed. Now, Bama with their explosive plays, yeah, they've hit some. But like you said, most of those have been either bust or Ryan Williams going up and making miraculous catches. And they just don't have those, like you just said earlier, they don't have Isaiah Bond on the outside anymore in terms of creating those explosive plays. And I just don't see the creativity in their offense that shows me that they will do that against Tim Banks' defense. So I think this will be it'll be a good game. I think it's going to be better than what people are thinking because both of the teams are just stumbling out of wins from last week from playing against Tennessee and Florida. They basically just prayed their way out of that. Bama prayed their way out of South Carolina. So you have two teams coming in that are inconsistent and aren't playing at their highest level for a pretty good showdown to see who's going to continue to play and have a better chance of playing the SEC championship. So,
I agree with you. I think both teams, you make a really good point with the offense. It seems Tennessee just does not have much outside of Sampson, the running back. I think they're struggling to protect Nico, and they're just not getting a lot of separation. Dante Thornton, Brew McCoy. McCoy's, remember, he came off that horrific injury, but I don't think
they're dropping the ball at a high rate as well too. They're not catching the ball well.
He just doesn't have a great receiver core, and he's not getting a lot of time. And you have that you're running the ball good, and then I would agree with you to piggy off what you said. It does feel like Milroe, he runs a lot, and at some point, is that going to be a problem? Because you're one play away from getting hurt, and then you
He
don't have
falls
the
hard too, man. He does not know how to take hits and slide, and
Well,
he
he's a
just takes
running
a
back.
lot
Yeah,
of
he's a
full
running back.
contact
Yeah.
hits. He takes a lot of full contact hits, and to me, that's a little bit of instincts and understanding where you're at and when you're going. Like if it's 3rd and 1 in the 4th quarter with 2 minutes left, yeah, I'm gonna run you over. But if it's 3rd and 1 in the 1st quarter, yeah, I'm gonna find my way to get a first down, and I might not run through you. I might just go low, and they give it to me because there's a lot of game left. And is the best player on the field and the best chance that your team is going to win the game is if you're in it, you have to be able to take those hits, not take those hits and finish out the game. But man, listen, I think I want nothing else but for Bama to come through and win this game. Because if there's one team that I really, really dislike, the Tennessee Volunteers. I've only beat them once in my entire life. So this one hits me a little bit different, but I think it's going to be a pretty good game. Want them to win, but I don't know if they can. It'll be a tough one.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game. I'm excited for it. Good weekend. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people are down in college football because of NLI, because of the transfer portal, because they moved it to a 12-team playoff. I think college football is better than ever. I actually think I do. Yeah, I think there's more parity. And if you look at the analytics, for instance, if you're not playing that 5-star, he's going to head somewhere else. So you're seeing teams that normally are not as good that are competing with these high-level teams. You're seeing look at Indiana. Indiana's a team that's a dark horse to play the playoffs because this new coach Kirk Cinetti was able to come in and get some really elite guys. And look how much better
he really just took that JMU team, the really good core guys, and brought them up to Bloomington, Indiana. But the good thing with Coach Cignetti, what he's doing with Kurt, is he has that culture already. Because, like we both just said, it's a JMU team that he just bottled up, the good ones, and took them with him. So he's not starting over from scratch. And I saw him against Maryland. Went back and watched the tape. They play hard. They're disciplined. They don't beat themselves. And when plays are there to be made and their quarterback's playing at a really efficient level, they make it. And in college football, like you just said, parity, there are more teams that beat themselves than there are teams that can flat out beat you. I can name probably on my hand maybe 3 teams, or maybe just 2, in my opinion. I think Texas can flat out beat you if you play your best. And, yeah, that's it.
It's a Texas.
Tyler, you ready for some recruiting talk?
Let's go.
This guy, Justice Terry, he was supposed to show up at Bama when they played against Georgia for his visit, but he got caught up with travel plans that didn't work out because of the weather. So now he's going down to Texas on his visit, 5-star, and he's going to Texas and Georgia game. Does Texas truly have a real chance of landing this 5-star, or he's just showing up just to see Georgia play?
So I'm not as keyed in probably as you are into this particular recruitment, but as far as I can tell, Georgia is the significant favorite. He's a Georgia kid. Normally Kirby Smart, let's be honest, he does not let elite players very often, or if he really wants them, get out of his state. And why wouldn't you take a trip to see one of the best games of the season?
No doubt about it.
But I mean, Texas is playing at an elite level. Texas was recruiting at an elite level. They can get anybody, anywhere, at any time. So if he's going there and he's at Texas and Texas goes out there and blows the door off Georgia, I mean, you can't say that they're not competition because obviously they're recruiting at an elite level. But as of right now, Georgia's the favorite. But we'll see how it plays out.
You know what? I think this guy lands at Georgia. And just being around this for a while and just looking at it, a lot of these kids are using other programs to run up the tab, to get that number up. So if he's showing up to Texas on an official visit, and this is official visit versus Georgia, there's some way, somehow, Kirby's going to be looking across and saying, nah, you can't lose this one because this one has an opportunity to get us back into the conversation of the true dominant defensive lineman where we're rotating at 2 and 3 deep at each position. Right now, they can't do that.
Yeah.
So I do think I do think he finishes at Georgia, but I think he's doing the right thing for his brand and running those numbers up to where he can now end up in the best situation for him financially. Listen, Courtney Morgan is one of my good friends, man. I know he's excited. They just landed a JUCO edge rusher, Kevontae Henry. Watch him today on film. The JUCO guy. I think he's going to get him to play that bandit position, which is more of that true defensive end position. He's about 6'4", 240 pounds. Still got some way to go in terms of getting size, but I like his size, length, and he has a good get off. And he's a number one guy. I know that JUCO is not the beautiful thing anymore because that's where you used to go get your old players from. Now you can just go ahead and just
I was a JUCO
everybody's roster. Oh, yeah,
I was a JUCO.
New Mexico?
Yeah, New Mexico Military Institute.
You know what? Give me your best JUCO story, then we'll get back to our number one edge rusher.
Well, I'm actually going to shout out Diego Pavie. Went to my junior college at New Mexico.
Look at you.
And look at how he's playing. Look how Diego's playing. My best JUCO was fun. It was guys that had either, dude, Diego. I mean, could he be a dark horse for the Heisman?
He should be. He should be in the conversation.
I didn't even mention him. He's playing better than Carson Beck. He's not the NFL talent, but he's playing better as a college player than Carson Beck.
You know what? Before you jump into sidebar, we'll get to this number one edge rusher, Kevontae. We'll get to Kevontae Henry in a second. Go back to what you just said because there's some traction behind it. Diego for Heisman. Start it up. I mean, get this going.
He beat Alabama on his home field, and
I was there.
Play after play after play. They're about ready to get shut down. Nope, he makes a play. And I cover Liberty. He played against Liberty 3 times. He whooped us once on our home field. Basically brought them all the way back and gave them a chance to win the game for the Conference USA Championship last year. He's just one of those guys. You look at him. He's not going to blow you away. He's not a huge guy.
5'9.5".
Small, not an elite athlete, but he's just one of those kids that's just tough as nails, is smart, and makes plays. And Vanderbilt's doing an amazing job of getting the right players around him.
Right.
What Clark Lee has done there, and Barton Simmons, I know, runs the recruiting. It's been a phenomenal story. And Diego Pavie is someone that at the end of the season, if he's able to pull off upsets against a team like the rival Tennessee in games like that, could he get a call to New York?
I think he should get a call.
I would love it. I would love it. So.
How about this? Let's drum up this scenario, right? Say Diego just came and beat Alabama, and he was the best player on the field at that time. Then he comes back and he beats Kentucky, and everybody said, "Oh yeah, it's just they're not playing good ball." Yeah, they are. So say they go down to LSU and they win that game, and then they beat Texas, and then they beat Tennessee, and they're in the conversation for a good ball game. Clark Lee, I said it a long time ago, about 3 weeks ago, should be up for a Coach of the Year in the SEC. If there's exec for the year, Barton Simmons should go get a strong vote as well for it as well too. But Diego should at least get a boarding pass. I don't know if the ticket is there yet, but he should be having a boarding pass in hand to be in New York for what he and Vandy's done to the college football world. If you take down 2 number 1 teams in a calendar year, you should be SEC Player of the Year easily and have an opportunity to go to New York. Does he win it? Hey, whatever. But my man should be in New York if that happens. If you beat Bama and Texas and hold your own or even beat LSU, yeah, Clark Lee's getting an extension. He's a lifer at Vanderbilt. Barton's going to get an extension. He's going to be a lifer at Vanderbilt. They might name the entire stadium, the building, every street in Nashville after those two. And Diego's going to run for something in the executive office at Vanderbilt, and he's going to be the man forever. Sorry, Earl Bennett's going to have to move out the way.
Hey, and that
Diego's coming to take over.
In that scenario, if they do all that, they're a dark horse to make the college football playoff.
That's what I'm saying. There's a good chance for them to do some incredible things.
But I find, like, when you mentioned like beating Texas and beating, I find it hard to believe that they'll do that. But if somehow they pull it off, they're a dark horse. Diego's in New York, unquestionably.
Here's the
would not
only
pick it up.
reason why they have an opportunity to beat those teams. They play an unorthodox way on offense that forces you, because they got a version of the. Listen, Tim Beck's one of the best hires he's ever made. I'm the second best. Sorry, Barton. I'm the second best. But either way, just getting back to it, they have a version of wing T, and they have some triple option within their offense with a just, I won't say dynamic playmaker, but he's one of those guys. You watch boxing much?
Oh yeah, I was a former boxer.
Man, the more I sit, the more I know.
He didn't put that down there.
Listen, real good-looking guys like you don't get punched in the face, man.
I was the #1 rated fighter in the nation in 2007. Look it up.
Look at you. So listen,
okay.
You know
Which
what?
boxer?
Like those gritty and just grungy boxers make it like a difficult fight. And before you know it, you're off of your game and you're not throwing jabs anymore, and you're brawling with a brawler.
Yeah.
And you go to the scorecards, you're like, yo, they just beat me.
Yeah.
That's what Vanderbilt does. And everyone's saying, well, Kentucky had a bad loss. No, Vanderbilt had a great win.
Yeah.
Bama did not have a bad loss. Vanderbilt had a great win. They beat both of those teams straight up. It was no one play. One of the guys got hurt. None of that case. They just beat those teams fair and square. And Clark Lee and those guys over there in the West End doing a tremendous job. But listen, let's get back to our guy, the #1 JUCO edge rusher. That my man Courtney Morgan just secured at Bama. That's one of the many that Bama needs, because getting after the passer to me has been a real big issue. I don't know if this guy's not going to be an elite pass rusher, but he's going to be a good enough pass rusher. And he can do a really good job playing the 5 technique, defensive end, like, can set the edge, and he has enough in him in terms of a power-to-power pass rusher, because he got a good get-off, but he's not the swivelous in the hip. He's a little bit tight in the hip, and you don't see that ability to bend and close. But he does have that long arm. He is twitchy, and he plays with maximum effort. Sometimes you don't have to be a great athlete. As long as you play with great effort, most of the time you can win those matchups. You're a defensive lineman, so go ahead. Let me hear your take.
Well, so background on that guy, you can maybe fill me in. So he went to Oklahoma out of high school. Why did he end up going the JUCO route instead of transferring to just another Power 5 program? Because he was a top 100 player coming out of high school. Yeah,
he was a good player. So most of the time, and I'm not going to speak on him, but most of us academically can't cut it. Or when you look at it, you don't have enough film to say I'm going to leave. And going back to JUCO gives you that opportunity now to, to start over, start fresh, and just retool your skills. Because I looked at his high school film, leaving after a year, I wouldn't say, banging on the table to get this guy, because at that point he was only 225 pounds, still kind of rangy, almost like that young deer that don't really have his feet up under him in terms of power and understanding the mechanics of being able to move as an SEC or a big-time player. Because I don't care what anybody says, Oklahoma is one of the greatest institutes for football in the United States. So going to Oklahoma, Texas, I'm an SEC guy, but I understand the caliber of athletes that go there. So everyone knew that he was that caliber athlete, but he just needed to go to JUCO to retool himself and be the #1 player again.
I wonder if more guys should do this, because they could not only set themselves up to get to a better situation. You're going to Alabama, you're going to one of the best programs in college football, but you're also probably getting a better NLI deal than if he would have. Obviously, he was in an elite program. He could have then transferred either to a similar program, or maybe a lot of guys tend to transfer down. Like you go to, I don't know, off the top of my head, TCU, not get the same NLI deal, and then you're still playing at the Power 4 level. So if you're maybe a little underdeveloped, like you say, then you still are not playing as much as you would like. Whereas he dropped down, and played junior college ball, developed, ends up playing at elite level at the junior college level, and ends up getting in a better situation with Alabama. So I'm just thinking, I'm wondering if more guys should do that. Because you see a lot of guys that will just transfer to another program, and like something's going to automatically change. And I'm just seeing a lot of guys that end up transferring, and they just kind of find themselves in a similar position to why did you even transfer? You could have hung out at Oklahoma and developed and probably been in a good situation. But this guy ends up being in probably a better situation.
That's the old model of thinking, and I think that still works. I just believe that everyone has a race that they have to run. And at the end of the day, you have to really look in the mirror and say, am I ready to transfer to the next school to develop myself? And most of the times, if I'm leaving from Oklahoma, most guys don't want to transfer to Boise. And if I'm at Boise, I don't want those guys. When I was a general manager at Maryland, I had my own way of recruiting the portal, and I never wanted a guy to level down to me, because I'm getting most of the time someone with a bad attitude, thinking that they're doing you a favor by coming to your school and playing, other than you doing them a favor of giving the opportunity again to play. So it now becomes a place where it's kind of looked down at. But if you're getting a player that's trying to level up, now you're getting a guy that's appreciative of everything that you're doing for them. So it's just a tit for tat how you look at it and why those guys do what they do. But for this young fella, listen, he's going to have an ability to go into Bryant-Denny Stadium or Nick Saban Field now and have 100-something thousand screaming Roll Tide. And within a few years, unless they turn this thing around a little bit, you'll have a chance to win the national championship. So shout out to him.
Yeah, so just touch on that for a second. So, first of all, I didn't know you were the Maryland GM, so I learned something new. So would you prefer having a guy like that played for Liberty that was like an all-conference USA? You would prefer to grab a guy like that than to grab a guy that was just disgruntled at Texas?
Absolutely. Because those guys have played. Most of the guys that are transferring down, they haven't played. The guys that are transferring up have played. So listen, we're at our hour mark, and I always give our guests an opportunity to tell the world how to find you on social media, or just give us a little bit of what you got going on. So Tyler, you got the floor for a few seconds. I'm messing with you. Go ahead.
I'm forgetting what my I do have a social media handle. I forget it. It's Tyler Turner. I have Tyler Turner at VA, but that's more for my other job. So you can follow me on there. I write on Substack for college football reporting. I'm probably going to do an updated prediction when it comes to the college football playoff. And I'm just a junkie when it comes to college football. I can sit there all day and watch games. I mean, most of the time I'm a really active guy, still work out a lot. But when it comes to college football season, I have 4 kids and I'm busy with my full-time job and all that. But a lot of times I'll just sit there from like noon until 1 in the morning, and I just watch Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, SEC, and I'll even watch the Group of 5. Obviously, I cover Liberty. Liberty's one of the better Group of 5 schools. And so I've seen who their competition is. And actually, if you want to see a lot of Conference USA play, they're playing on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays now. So you get to see Conference USA teams play during the middle of the week. And you have football all week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then you got NFL on Sunday and Monday. So, catch me at Tyler Turner VA. That's one I can remember. I have another one, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
There you go. Well, listen, man, anytime that you want to pop back in to the opening kick, give me a ring or find me on social media, Coach GV Dixon, and let's get this thing going again, man. I really appreciate you coming on and having this great conversation with me. Good debates, man. I love your quarterback pick.
I appreciate it. Thanks, man. Thanks you for having me on.
Hit the like and subscribe button. Come back at it. Opening kick. It don't get no better than this. 7 o'clock. Best mind in football. Smoke Dixon. And the pretty guy, the model himself, Tyler Turner.